All right, so go on.
So basically, I just want this to display on our client, not necessarily on our client portal, but basically I'm kind of working on something like this, and I would kind of like it, make like a little iframe or something that
Hmm.
just says show something that is either live or this is just a mock-up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It just says live or offline.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
this is this
So
is this is an RSS feed, but it doesn't work constantly.
yeah. So let's do it this way. So first, I want to go back to the form, like, because I want to make sure that that part is working first. Because the condition that you had specifically was not working.
Yeah. Okay.
So what is your overall goal on this condition, like for this?
Well, I'm just trying to set something that either I thought about the switch that said yes or no, that was green if it's live, if it and red if it's no,
Hmm.
or just like a label that says live with like a green background.
Okay.
I don't know if that's going to be a little too fancy or just I'm just trying to work out an example so
Yeah.
it mm,
So first of all, go to your condition that you have set up on that switch, because that's not properly working right now.
okay.
So there's your test condition. So the reason why it's not working is because one, you have it set up as a data condition.
I
So
first set it up as an initialization. I don't know if that would I
so
figured
first, so with your flow, you know how you're outputting it to either be true or false?
yes.
Essentially, what you're doing here is you don't have anything happening because the condition,
Okay.
so this condition right here, nothing's happening there. So we don't know anything that's
Yeah.
going on. As an initialization condition, though, we want it to be true because
Okay.
this should happen all the time. So go to that green, yeah, we'll go to the green plus, add the true thing, not that.
Oh, true. Okay.
Just it just needs
Oh,
to be true because we wander around
okay.
every single time. I want a way to be able to set a default value, but yeah, it's right there.
So basically, this is where I was getting lost. Since I didn't see the data picker here, I
Hmm.
figured that this condition doesn't do anything if we're
No, that
using
does
flow.
everything. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay. So it
green
does? Okay.
plus true.
Okay.
So basically what we just did was we're gonna say, hey, every time this form loads, you're gonna run this flow at this specific version, and you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna be setting the value of this SW live thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what this flow results expression specifically does is so it runs the flow. You know how in the flow we have to say like, hey, like this is going to be the output from the
Yeah.
flow. This
Mm-hmm.
allows you to essentially modify that a little bit.
Okay.
However, what you're basically doing is you're just adding another condition to say response is equal to false. Now, whenever like this won't this I don't I actually have no idea what that will do. You could actually delete that whole expression and not even touch it right here.
Okay.
Because you're only outputting one specific thing to the entire form. Not you're not or you're not outputting like 10 different things that like to like an output data table or anything like that. You just
Okay.
have that singular response output. So now you can go and click OK
Okay.
and then update it. And then whenever you go to preview, you should see that.
Oh, awesome. All right.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. So I have it. So how do we get rid of the submit button or we can't?
So the way
Or
that we get rid of the submit button is if you go back into design mode,
mm-hmm.
what you are going to do is add like an empty column or something like that, or yeah, like an empty row column, single column, and then go to controls, and then you're going to add a oh gosh, what do we want to add? We want to add an action button that is going to be, if you double click on it, we're going to make it hidden and disabled. So this is going to be under that appearance tab. You're going to make it hidden and disabled,
uh,
and then update. So the way that these forms essentially work is if there is no sort of button on the form
okay.
of that can do something,
Mm-hmm.
then it will automatically input its own submit button. However, what we did was we just added a button to the form that is now disabled and hidden, so that like it form's now thinking, oh, there is a button. So now if you go to preview it, we should have
Okay.
that should
Perfect.
be away now. Yep.
All right. And is there any way to like to pass flow data into like a HTML box, like right here?
I mean, you could write some JavaScript that calls the flow directly or calls
Oh,
a
okay.
flow directly.
Okay.
But what like, well, let me ask you this: what would you want to do?
Um, I was just, you know, spitballing, honestly. Like if like make our own little custom switches or, green label boxes that are green or red or but this works fine.
Hmm. Okay. Um, because I mean, so like, I don't know if you guys were able to attend any of the Converge sessions,
A
but
little bit.
It was rough.
so
I think the effort was definitely there, but we're looking forward to the recordings that they provide
Mhm.
after.
Yeah. Because so I did a session on building unique iPaaS forms, and one of the ones that I brought in there was something specifically for like having like that status page.
Uh, okay.
And I did add it to the global community library. So if you go to the libraries drop down, global community library, and then you can filter by type of
Form?
application. And then the building unique forms Converge 2023. You can go and just import that. And then if you go to forms in this case, I have the like application status page form. Now it's just an outline. Now there's an associated flow with it as well. But if you were to go into like, so that custom control, all that does is specifically just makes the width be 100%. For some reason, I was running into some weird issues that the form wouldn't load to 100% width of the page. Could not figure out why, so I just made it do it. But if you go to flows real quick, so I have this app status page load right here. So essentially like this, now this pulls specifically from a report that I have in my personal system. But essentially what you could do is you could kind of remake some of this with your PowerShell script. And all the magic that specifically happens around this is within the template that's in step 4.
Step 4. This one?
Yeah. So essentially I just populate a bunch of data into this template
Oh, that's cool.
and then I output that HTML to the form and then it displays it. So like an actual like live version of like what this can look like out there. Let me pull it up. All right, so I'm
And
gonna drop. I'll drop
basically
this.
just
Yeah.
to add it to a iframe, you just go to configuration and DSO.
So the way that I go about doing this is, so if you go back to all like the flows in there in that application, so this is all it is. So you see how I have that one uh, flow specifically called form link generation. So usually whenever I have forms that I'm going to embed or I want to have some sort of a how do I want to phrase this? Like I just need the link for it. I don't need like anything. Like I'm not sending it to anybody. Like I just want that
Mm-hmm.
raw link. You go to the trigger section on this flow and you scroll down. Okay, so that's weird that I got rid of all those things. So what you could do is like you go to the add form submission, and then like you could select like the status page for or any. I mean, you could select any of these things, and then it doesn't matter the flow version because this form is never going to be submitted. All it specifically is specifically for the that
The
application
link, right?
status
This
page.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
this one.
Just refresh on this page, and then you'll get the link.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. And this you just put into an iframe, right?
Yeah, but this isn't going to load anything because
Okay. Yeah.
the flow is that it's associated with isn't working.
But if you want to click on the link in the chat, Abel, you can see what it looks like.
Yeah.
I hid my controls and now I can't find chat.
I just turned it back on this morning. I ran into the same issue.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Cool. All right. I'm gonna shamelessly copy this.
Well, that's you already have it.
Sharing is caring.
Right on.
Yeah, so like what that template that I built is exactly this.
Awesome.
Now there's a little bit more custom scripting that goes into whenever I embedded the form onto this page. The thing about it that I did differently was it's a dynamic iframe on this one. The other one is not.
Mhm.
Which means that like no matter whenever they add stuff, they don't need to go like they don't need a hard code a set height. Or like as whenever the page like gets bigger or smaller, they don't need to worry about stuff like that. However, a couple of things that like that I would need to resolve in this issue are like if I'm on a mobile device, it doesn't work properly.
Oh, okay.
Like, but because it's an embedded iframes are horrible. I don't like them. But like when you're trying to do like the sizing of it, it's fun.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, well, I didn't hear back from him, but we'll go ahead and get started with that. That was a really good question. And Andre, you have us set just to do a Q&A kind of session today, right?
Correct.
Right. Okay. So I first want to just introduce, we have two new folks in the room. Betsy is a fellow programmer. And Betsy, I don't know if you wanted to introduce yourself or say anything.
Sure. I'm Betsy, and I'm a senior programmer, and I have been working with Banner for around 3 years. So I'm really excited because I was part of the transition when we bought articles and then we found several forms to the e-business for finding. I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, she's also really excited about leveraging this product and has been seeing the emails back and forth and wants to get involved. So it's like, come on, hop on board, let's do it.
Definitely.
And then Wendy Vega is also a senior program analyst. She is the one that most recently joined the team. Wendy, did you want to say hi?
Yes, hi. Yes, I'm the newest on the team, and all this is new for me, so
She's
I
a
just
quick
don't know what to expect.
Oh yeah, she is a quick learner, so she picks up really quick, and so looking forward to leveraging this tool with her as well. So we also, Alfonso's the only one that couldn't make it, that wasn't involved before, I believe, and he is also a senior programmer, primarily supporting the finance side of the house, but he can do pretty much everything. He's been around a long time. So Andre, since we're bringing in the rest of the programmers on this call, I was hoping if we could take just a few minutes and just do that quick tour. Obviously, we don't need to go over the connectors, anything like that, but just the interface itself. And I did have a question when we jump in there, because I know you and I went back and forth a little bit on user access, and I just would like to understand best practices with building out applications, given our struggles we had with ITSM. When we initially built out, we had too many, and then scaling back after the fact is difficult because then you have to do a lot of reconfiguration. So with that in mind, I did try to keep it fairly streamlined. But I noticed when you were helping Abel right now, you had him import and it was an application. So it feels like application, the list can get a little out of control. Is that something you have thought about too? Or what's your recommendation around that?
It's definitely something that does easily get out of control very, very quickly.
Yeah, I wish there was folder structures. I noticed there's not, so.
Yeah, or like having those like actual like child applications, things like that.
Yeah.
So usually so my best practice that or what I should say is the way that I've started getting into this stuff is specifically I build applications around processes, but that's just me personally. A lot of times I just see people build them around like the actual like organization itself, or not the organization, but or just like the department itself.
And so this is what I was thinking in my
essentially
mind
that.
was the departments themselves, but then we also had our own folder that if we get into, let's see, so it was app services. Actually, this one might be empty right now. Now that I
Mhm.
think about it, because I think everything's in development right now for training.
Yeah, you might need to refresh the page. I've been noticing
Oh.
a little bit of slowness today too.
Okay, it's probably in here. Yeah, so all that we've been playing with, but then because there's not the folder, the child type of architecture, I was like, well, I guess we could put our first name dash and then the name of it, but this still feels a little messy. So I just didn't know if you had any suggestions other than what we're trying. But that was my approach.
Not really. Coming up with some sort of tagging like that is probably gonna be your best bet. That's usually what I do whenever I have like I have an application that probably has 40 or 50 flows in it, and the way that I organize it is just by like the first few letters on it and just
Okay.
tagging it.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
So, but if you wouldn't mind taking up some of our time, just to do a brief tour for our new folks, that would be great, Andre.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks.
Trying to think of like what to show.
Well, so these are programmers, so of course they're
Yeah.
gonna want to really understand the toolbox.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So let's see. Let me see if I got just like a flow handy that I can use just to populate stuff with.
So I'm sure they're initially intimidated when they saw Abel share, but I told them right up front, Abel's been running full speed ahead and is playing a lot more than we've had a chance to. So we are not that far along as Abel is.
Yeah. So here we go. So this is just like a empty flow that I just happened to find for stuff. So for the people who are new on the call, if you have ever worked with a programming language or framework called Scratch, which is essentially just like it's like a intro code learning platform that's it's a very visual code or it's 100% visual code editor, but you can make like games and stuff like that out of it. Have never tried it, but that's essentially how this tool will work right here. So you have different like sections for like controls, like ifs, like an if else. You can add like an if elifs in here. Switches, you have like timing and waiting, lockstep, which is essentially kind of sets up like a queuing system. You have like repeating, so for things like looping through different stuff, being able to do that stuff. Your connectors and messaging. So this is like for connecting to external platforms. So like being able, and it's all done via API or a proxy that's runs on a local server. And also being able to do like different types of notifications through here. And then like where a lot of like, I would say like a lot of the steps that I don't use connector steps often, but it's like pretty much everything else, like the control, the repeat in this data section, like I use all this kind of stuff a lot. Now, just to kind of go through the list of these things. So you have a property step, which is essentially like a variable. So like I can come up here, I can drag a property, I can assign it a given name. So I could call this one like, or I'll call this one like first name. And then I could either hard code a value into it, or I could set a value to it later using the set step if I wanted to, or if like I had something from prior, like let's say if I'm just gonna hard code this one for right now, but then like if I wanted to and then like I'll drag a third property, I wanted to say like full name, I could easily do these together and then reference those from those previous steps up. Now, as I was doing that though, and I did that a little fast, but you have essentially, so like that little blue icon that I clicked on to open that menu, I call that specifically the data picker. And within that, essentially it allows you to pick through all the data that you have set up throughout the flow. So you have like first name, last name, in this case, that. Now if I had like a connector in here, I'm just gonna drag like a random one in here. Let's see. Or no, I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to do a different one. I'll do this like project one. And then get. But like if I wanted to, so like this is like just like a call for like getting a project plan, but if I wanted to reference stuff out of this, then I could, this is like where that connector comes in, and then I have like my response, and then these are all the items that are specifically in the connector if I want to reference any of that stuff. And then that's how you specifically can like pull through and pick through the information that comes back from these things or from those API endpoints. You have another section as well, so you can you can create your own custom JavaScript to be able to manipulate different things. And whenever you're doing that, whatever you name like your variable or something like that, or like your group, your table or anything like that, you can just reference that directly within your script, and it'll you can do stuff within that. Then you also have a bunch of like different expressions. So you have like this, in this case, this is like a trim expression, but it also is a drop down for a bunch of other different things. Everything is just click and drag. So if I want to use this, all I have to do is just click and drag it over. But this all has to do within like text expressions. Now, whenever you're hovering over some of these things, you have like the little blue circles. That gives you just kind of like a brief description of what it is, and how it's used. But then you also have like math expressions as well. So for like adding, subtracting, absolute values, which also has a bunch of other stuff. This like from like, and then you could select like a specific, in this case, like row out of a table. So essentially, so in iPaaS, whenever you hear the word table, think of it as like a, it's just an array, a JSON array, object array of, and then like, so your key, you're specifically like choosing from like that specific key value in there. You also have logical expressions. So these logical expressions are good for like whenever you're building if statements. So like if I were to come in here and like grab like an if statement, the one thing you'll notice too is the shape of like where these like placeholders for this if statement are. They fit specifically within these logical expressions right here. So that's like where you can like come in, you can click and drag and drop and then do stuff. And then based off of the value of the true or false value of these things, then it will evaluate what's in those if or else, or you can add like an else if above, those kinds of places right there. So, but then you get access to those things. You have date and time expressions. These are really nice if you're working with date time objects. That just kind of makes life a little bit easier to work with them. And then a bunch of general expressions like length of, index of in, contains, exists, is null, finds, or find in, get in, a when statement, UID, so on and so forth. So that's like the essential crash course of what this tool is. It's a very visual like code editor. But as you start kind of using it more and more, then like you'll notice where things like whenever you're like doing like actual like in a IDE programming versus iPaaS, like you do kind of have to flip a few small switches in your brain. Like the one immediate one that I can think of specifically is indexing in iPaaS. So if you're like doing looping and iterating of data, it specifically is indexing starts at 1, not 0. So that's one of the big things.
Awesome. Can you show an example of an end result of this magic working?
One
One of your fancy forms.
I'm trying to think about how crazy I want to go.
I know, right? Well, no, just show them what the possibilities. I will be sharing the videos from the previous sessions that did get recorded with them. But just to get them excited.
So one thing that I built like with the forms and the flows that, and this is just like an easy one that I like to show off. Solutions remodel, or no, it's on just, here we go. So announcement. So, one thing I built that I thought was kind of cool is 2 iPaaS dynamic forms that use flows to interact and connect to each other. So, here I have this specific form right here. Now this is an iPaaS dynamic form that I can come in here, I can populate information in. So like I could say like test for like Imperial Valley. I could select like its type, put in just some text in here. And then like I preview like what it's actually going to look like. And then I can post it, and then essentially through some magic that happens next time this page loads, it will actually be present there for everybody to see. So, but then like there's couple of different flows that are in the back end to actually help make these things happen. So like the one for specifically like adding the announcement to the list of like being able to like actually preview them is, here we go, is essentially, so basically the way that like I can connect these two forms together is through something what's referred to as a shared app value. Now, I would say don't get into using shared app values quite yet, because they are actually going to be depreciated as of tomorrow, because we're getting actually a really, really cool upgrade of like what the capabilities of it are. So you can ignore it for the most part of like what this is, but it's still like relevant. But essentially, like I have this table of like all the data that's already in technically the shared app value. And then what I do is through the form, whenever I click like post announcement to the thing, it'll first see like, okay, if the announcement title is not null, then we'll create a new UUID for the announcement. We will set whatever the, or we can ignore this step because that has to do with the current shared app value setup, but we don't have to worry about that. But then the next thing I do is like, okay, I look to see if the list of already existing announcements is equal to 0. If that's the case, then I just add it to the list. And then if it's not greater than 0, or if it is greater than 0, then what I do is I just do an insert at the first position or at the beginning. So then it's like my most recent ones are at the top versus the bottom. And then I just, this like last set step is something you don't need to worry about, because of the fact with the new shared data settings, it essentially is just going to work like a table where I just have to add it to the one specific piece. So, but yeah, and then but like then there's a couple other cool like features associated with this. So like for like anything that's already posted, let me just refresh that. Anything that's already posted for like, so like in this case, like Excel is that, or like I'll take down this one test building a really cool template form online. I can remove that one right here. So like there's a flow specifically for removing announcements from there. So then if I also come back to here, announcements, it was that one that was online right there. That's now gone. So you can do some really, really cool stuff with these things.
And so where we're at right now is building out connectors. We have some built already. We have the proxy set up so that we can build the connectors that require a proxy. And I was looking at the list now. We're still working on the banner connector, so that's not available yet. It looks like we have so just to confirm, Andre, I go to administration and then connector definitions. Is that how I can see the active connectors, right?
Yes,
Okay.
administration connector definitions.
Perfect.
Then
Awesome.
I mean,
Then.
we have 465 in our environment, but yeah.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure I have 22. So that's right.
Question, Andrew. Let's see. Now that Melody mentioned something about the connectors and the proxy settings that we're working on it, but I don't know who's actually working on that. It actually the people that are working on application services, or is actually you, Andrew, that is helping us to handle this, because I need to know around time in the timeline how far we are from that point, because we actually need to communicate between the forms and banner. I just want to be sure of how far we are.
Yeah, so banner is the priority connector. That's something that I've been working on with Alex. So Andre showed us how to configure them, and it's up to us to actually build them. And so the proxy is built, and we did check in with Andre to get through that one. And that also involved enterprise as well. So we worked with, I think it was Steven, to get that set up. Now, as far as the banner connection, that is again the priority one. As far the others, we built Canvas. We've never connected to Canvas before, and so we're all running into issues on that one. So still troubleshooting that piece. And then the Team Dynamics connectors automatically come in there. So you will see that there's already connectors you can choose from if you're trying to pull Team Dynamics form data or project data So can I share my screen, Andre?
Yeah, definitely.
Just so I can show where we're at on that one. So we have Active Directory. Canvas again, although it says active, if we try to do flows with it, nothing's pulling right now. We're sorry, go
On
ahead,
these,
Abel.
yeah, on these in the TDX common admin, I think we need to build out the admin credentials into it because we can't use right now the admin portion of the TDX connector.
Okay, so that can be a Q&A piece too. But we have the HTTP, Microsoft Calendar, Microsoft Teams, PowerShell, and then here are the TDX connectors. But we have not gone through and tested every one of them yet to see if they're effective. It looks like Abel has attempted to utilize one of them and is not able to do so. You said that this one here, Abel?
Yeah, pretty much all of them are active. I know I tested most of them out. It's the only one is TDX admin. When you go and create the connector, it asks for credentials, and the shared credentials don't show up. It asks for the BEID and the web service key.
You
I
know
tried doing username and password and it didn't work.
do you know
Yeah,
what
it's
he's
because it's
talking
looking
about,
at the
Andre?
TDX admin level credentials of the like the web service key admins credential.
You know, if other banner colleges have been using the banner the connections already in place? Or we're gonna be the first one?
Andre, did you hear her question?
No, I did not.
She asked if you have other colleges leveraging the Ellucian connection, the Ellucian connector already in production.
1 second. I can tell you here in a second. I know that one of my current clients has been trying to utilize it. As of right now though, so like at least like this, so they've been using specifically the colleague connector. I don't know much about the banner connector, but the colleague connector is a little bit cumbersome to use, but it's not like I have seen a few people use it. Yes, to answer your question.
Yeah, I know that our colleagues over at San Jose Evergreen have been working in tandem with us. And I know there's a couple other colleges either in the process of or negotiating on the iPaaS agreement as well. So, but the Ellucian connectors are what they're calling out of the box. So we did take a look at them and we're starting to understand what that would take in order to set those up, because those are a priority, those we would need. And that's why we have so part of our contract agreement with implementation is that Team Dynamics is building 3 flows with us, assisting us with those builds as a training mechanism. And they include a banner connector and Adobe Sign connector for that very reason, to ensure that we can get those working. Because I mean, that's the reason why we chose this product over the other 2 we were looking at, is to leverage those connectors. So we will get them working.
Yeah. And just had a little bit more clarification. So for the building process of like the ones where you identify and then we build, those are like we build them for you. We give you updates as we build them.
Okay.
But it's not like the way that it's set up isn't like as we build, we sit down with you and like build it like showing you as we build it.
Okay.
But at the end of after it's done build, then we do like a knowledge transfer saying like, hey, this is what it's doing and stuff like that.
Okay. I mean, that works too, but hey, any opportunity to watch and learn is greatly appreciated. We did just go through a training with another vendor, and they had a different strategy. I did like the strategy. It did take more time, but they actually gave us the exercises, and then he said, okay, now you have, so much time, go ahead and do it, and then let me know when you're done. And then he just muted, and we all worked it, most of the team here worked through them, and then at the end we shared our screen to show we were able to successfully complete it, and then he gave us feedback when we had ran into issues, and that was helpful. I mean, the hardest challenge, and I encourage all of us, myself included, is that when we are just watching, that we're going back and then trying to do it ourselves or do it while we're watching him, so that we can retain it. Because you're watching and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, but then later you'll go to do it and be like, okay, wait, what, how did you do that? So hands-on is always helpful as much as possible.
Yeah, and I'll attest to that too. So whenever I onboarded onto like doing iPaaS stuff, I never had like any like formal training of like this is how you like, or like even like outline training that you all have gone through. All I had was just somebody saying kind of figure it out a little bit. Or I figured, and then most of it I just figured out on my own, and then also asked for help in places. But a lot of the stuff that I've learned, and like even like I guess like the more like tips and tricks I've learned as well, has literally just been trial and error. It's kind of like whenever you're learning how to program, it's a lot of just heavy trial and error.
Yeah, so the able approach.
Yeah. Mhm. I'm gonna start calling that. Start calling it that.
No, yes, he's been going to town. I've been very proud of him. Although every once in a while he'll say, wait, I'm not sure how to get this. I'm like, well, you're way ahead, so I'm not even there yet. And a lot of those connectors I'm seeing in there, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, cool. So love the eagerness.
Definitely.
So that's all I had today, Andre, was just the quick overview before because I'm sending them the videos from the previous session, so they'll be able to watch the ones that you'd recorded and get up to speed that way. But we would love to keep working on the connector, but we want to try, I think, Alex, just to confirm, I think we're at the point where we're just wanting to give it a shot, and then if we run into any issues, we can reach out, right? I think that's where we're at. Yeah. So it's just been, we keep getting interrupted with this SSO portal guard issue. So apologize to everyone for the delay, but that is on our list to knock out.
Yeah. One thing that I will ask, if there's nothing else, Melody, were you able to attend the enterprise iPaaS use cases session for Converge?
No, so again, I signed up for several sessions and then kept getting pulled away. And so the few that I was on, I was only on briefly. I went and connected with certain people I saw in the sessions, just so I can get their contact information down. And then I was hoping that, or kept looking for the email regarding the videos for Converge like they did last year. So I can go back and watch them uninterrupted. Because it was extremely distracting.
Yeah, let me see if they maybe already have them up, or they could be working on getting them up right now.
Yeah, they usually send an email out whenever they've been released, and I haven't seen that email yet.
Converge 2023. It looks like they are probably just getting them set up. Let's see. Can you view those permissions? Oh yeah, it's actually already there. Or well, that one is. Let me see if this one is.
So what could be helpful, if you don't mind, Andre, is just in the project charter, when you update it after today, any sessions that you want to encourage us to attend, just put in that chat too, and just say, I highly encourage you watch these sessions from Converge, the ones that you know would be useful for us.
Yeah, definitely. I was also going to kind of give you a little bit of a demo of like something that I've been building, like that ties into that status page that I showed, like that I showed off a second ago about like an application process go down.
Yeah, because I've run into another little issue, but go ahead.
Yeah. So so this is something I'm currently building for a client. It's actually almost done. It's just we need to reconfigure a few things, then do some actual live testing with it. But essentially the things that happen within this process, there's a couple of moving parts. So there's a TDX workflow that exists for actually getting kind of stuff started. And then within the workflow, what it does is it triggers different iPaaS flows to be able to go out and do certain things that we need it to do. So this will include things such as so we have the regular maintenance for so part of this includes the status page, being able to update the text and things like that on here. Another thing is being able to create Teams messages for different things, for quicker responses to different stuff, and so on and so forth. But just kind of walk through how this process works, and this is also backed by iPaaS. Essentially, somebody would come in and then a service would be down. And once again, like part of this could be automated. It doesn't have to be ticket triggered or ticket based triggered. But they come in here, we could say, I'll just use like the example of like colleague is down. And then I'll put myself as a requester. And then I'll specifically select the service that's down, colleague. And then I can add description, colleague is down. We need to get someone on this right away. I also have confirmation from the vendor or something like that. I'm just adding some text in here. And then I'm just filling out the rest of the ticket. I'll put myself as a responsible, even though it doesn't really matter. And then the source. Okay, so all this is entered, then I'll go ahead and click on save. So whenever this process is saved, it'll automatically go ahead and just kick off the workflow that already exists. So I'll go ahead and view that service request. Now, the first thing that happened was, so the reason why we wanted to do it through assets, or well, why this thing is set up all in TDX, like with CIs and assets, is so we have it set up as a CI. So each of those like software services on that front page all have their own associated CI. That's like the select the service that went out drop down. Now, what's nice about these CIs is that they can have an owning group associated with them. In this case, I just have this service out testing group. Now, the first thing that this process does is it figures out, okay, who is in that group, or first it figures out, okay, who's the responsible group of the specific service that went down. So in this case, whichever one is that group responsible for colleague. In this case, all of them for just right now is the service out testing group. The first thing that happened was it changed the responsibility of that ticket to that service out testing group. So now they're the ones who are they're the ones who are responsible for said ticket. The next thing that happens, now this is a manual choice step. So this is like somebody comes in, they look at the ticket, and then they have to do these things. They verify if the service is down. Now this is something that they wanted, but you can also see where this was then transferred to the ownership of that service out testing group. I'll go in and just say this service is out. And then now what it's doing is it's going out to that status page and updating the service status to be offline. So if I come back into here, this page refreshes. You can now see where colleague is online, and then the text that was also associated there originally is also gone. And that's kind of part of how this flow is set up. Now, the next thing that happens is first, like this is just workflow task. I'm just gonna mark this complete. Now we have does a Teams chat need to be created? This is also a choice step. They said some cases they might not need to create a Teams chat, but this is now one available to them. I'm going to go ahead and click yes for this. So I'll go in and click save. And then now what's happening is iPaaS is now, or what it would be doing is creating a Teams chat for everybody that's in that responsible group in iPaaS. And then what it does is it sends, now I have it hard coded where it just sends it to the same chat every single time, just so I'm not like overloading them with various like multiple group chats, even though I'm only sending the same thing. But essentially what it does is it sends this card right here that says, it just has the ticket title and the ticket description. You can click on this and it just opens you back up to go in and view the ticket. But then I have this thing that says update CI, and I'll probably change it instead of the ID to the actual name. But if I click on this, then what this does is this takes me to a separate iPaaS form. Now, what this iPaaS form does is it is specifically responsible for being able to give me some like notes in this outage section. So these are like the notes specifically for like the public. So I can come in here and say, colleague EAG is currently offline. Our IT team is in contact with the vendor to find the cause. And then I can go and update that asset. So then that's been submitted. Now what happens is the next time this page loads or somebody goes to it, then we can see that that text is then set for right there. And then from there, what happens is like now, like at this point, all communication should be set up through like this Teams chat. So we could say, hey, colleague is back online. We are good to go. And then, so we got that message in there. And then, so somebody would come back to the ticket, then we can verify now that the service is back online, so I can mark that complete. And then we have, so right now what's going on in the background is it's now updating the system status page for this to be online. It now has that regular text that was visible there originally, also there. And then the last thing that happens is an attachment is created, a PDF attachment of the Teams chat transcripts and right here. So whenever you click on this and then you go to it, here are all those messages that were sent. So I'm still working on this. This is like the last piece that I'm working on, getting rid of the like where it's like all these like blank boxes and stuff like that. But that's like, but yeah.
That PDF attachment, that's like icing on the cake. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, so like transcripts for service outage, it gives you the ticket ID, the title, the resolution date of it, and then this is your audit trail from here.
So are you leveraging an Adobe connector for that, or how are you capturing that piece right there?
So an Adobe connector. So I reach out. So Teams has an endpoint specifically for getting messages in a group chat. I get all the messages, then I create essentially like HTML, like I use a template, like a flow template to like give me like the basis of it. And then we in our in the PDF connector, it does have a thing to convert HTML to PDF. And then I just use that. I use the proxy, and then I just use the attach ticket call, and then take that file that I created and attach it to the ticket itself.
Makes sense. That's cool.
And then what's nice about this too is the fact that like, now the way I have the process set up eventually is that like, let's say like there was already a chat associated with this, and then like the ticket was resolved, but then it needed to be reopened or something like that. It'll hit that, like we can set it up where it reapplies the, like if somebody goes in and reapplies the workflow for it, that it'll like go through like the process, like does a Teams chat need to be created again? And the nice thing is it will not create another Teams chat, it'll just already use the pre-existing one.
Nice. So you thought of that too.
Yeah, so if it got reopened, then it's like we can just set it, so then it goes right back to that pre-existing one if they wanted it to, and then it'll re-upload the new attachments in there as well.
Yeah, because we will, I mean, I'm just thinking here, we sometimes run into issues where we have to reapply workflows as well, so that makes sense. Cool.
Yeah, but that's just kind of a cool process that I was working on for them. And then, like I said, it's still like there's still a couple of things that just need to be touched up on, but yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I do have.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no problem. But that's kind of like, so I like showing that off because it just demos really nicely. But like the things, the benefits of it are like it's a very streamlined process. It flows very nicely. You're not having to fiddle through like TDX assets or anything like that. It gets you to a communication place that's really easy to go to, Teams, and then still gives you the audit trail associated with the ticket. But it kind of shows off a couple different endpoints of like where you have Teams chats, you have messages, PDF connector, forms, more integrations with work management, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I did like that one showed some outside connectors too versus just leveraging the Team Dynamics connectors.
yeah, and then like also the nice thing about like using these CIs and things like that too is the fact that like you can see the ticket history against it as well. So eventually, like I'm not going through the process of doing it with them, but eventually what we're gonna do, or like what I'm gonna recommend that they do, is tie this in with their change management. So then whenever like stuff is gonna undergo change, it can also still update that status page and stuff like that. Because you can have maintenance windows on assets and stuff like that. So
Oh man,
or like whenever a change ticket goes in, then it'll know to update the asset view to say, hey, we're going through some updates right now and stuff like that.
that's excellent. Jose, I hope you were hearing that part because I know James really wants to roll out the asset side of it. And so Andre, we're not yet configured with assets. We are starting to put some assets in on the IT side. We're working with the purchasing so that they can start leveraging that aspect too. But that's one of the benefits is not only tracking tickets associated with that asset, to see if there's issues that are starting to arise, but also leverage iPaaS for assets so that if it gets down to certain thresholds, some automation can happen, or like what you just displayed, show maintenance windows and pieces like that.
Yeah, definitely.
So again, we're just getting started on the asset side.
Yeah, but no, this is, and so the thing about this process too is, and this is like, for me personally, like what I love about like flow building too is, so this process, they just said like, hey, like this is kind of like what we do already. I think I could actually find the document that they sent me for this stuff. Give me 1 second.
Oh, that is a good question. So what I shared when I shared my screen earlier, is that what you prefer, is a Visio kind of map out like that?
Yes, that like
okay.
that would be incredibly helpful.
Perfect.
But
Okay.
so what they sent me like is like, oh, our processes of communicating internally and externally when our system applications go down is cumbersome and needs improvement. The ideal solution, so like having the service out process to enhance it. So this is essentially what they sent me. So like they have like their as is, service occurs, like then this is like these are the steps that they do. Then this is what they wanted it to do. So like iPaaS like will trigger off these kinds of different things and stuff like that. Now, it's a little bit different than what they originally sent me, but one of the things that I really like is that something like this is very broad. Now, what I was able to do, and this is like where I really love it, and I'm like able to like, I want to build something that you can keep making better and better and better, kind of like adding things to it over time, is I specifically like took what they had and started adding additional features and places to help them like it be even more streamlined than what they were originally asking for. They kept it very open, and I like that because then I got to come in and like really like help add some like really cool fine-tuning perspectives in there. Like being able to like where I'm configuring it in such a way that if they wanted to tie change management into it tomorrow, they could. Things like that. So
Yeah, that is scalable.
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I noticed Alfonso did join. I did let him know we are recording too, so he can watch it later. But Alfonso is another senior programmer. Did you want to say hi, Alfonso?
Hi there. Sorry for being late. So
Oh, we're all juggling a lot. And this is Andre. He works with Team Dynamics and he's helping us with the implementation of iPaaS.
thank you.
No problem.
So
sweet.
Andre, yeah, we got
Mhm.
our team is getting bigger, which means we can accomplish more. So for the future, just so what I see right now, and just to confirm, Andre, so I see right now we have on the calendar, our next meeting is on the 5th of June.
Mhm.
And that's I have it written down as another Q&A session. So is that what you reflect as well?
Yes.
Perfect. So just like what Abel did, I encourage everyone to start playing with it. I'll send the videos out. And then that way, when we come back to our session on the 5th, we could ask questions if we get stuck. And Andre can help us work through those. Because I think that's how we're supposed to leverage that session, right, Andre?
Correct.
Perfect. And then I have on the 7th of Wednesday, the T Dynamics iPaaS 2.5. That was a release webinar.
Mhm.
And it was an email that went out. Let me see if it's one of those type of invites. I think I can just send it to the team.
Yeah, you
Even
should be
though-
able to forward it to everybody.
Okay, cool. I know I registered, but I think the link will work with everyone. It just means you all might need to change your name once you join, or else you might all have my name reflected. Oh, but I think it's a webinar instead of a normal Zoom, so that won't matter. And then we have one more scheduled on June. Where'd it go? June 15th.
Okay, awesome.
So that's all I show on my calendar with you, Andre, is those 2 sessions. And then I have, just so we know what that workflow I showed earlier, I meet with them on the 12th. So that would be, I'd be able to have feedback in time for that one. But can you just help me understand how it works after we finish the final Q&A session and we get to the point where you're building them? So it sounds like you're going to build the 3 and then give us the overview of what was done. Is that something that we just provide to you and you're working on those, or do I just provide them to Carrie, or how does that work?
So unfortunately, I do have to hop off to another meeting right now. Could I just send you an email
Yeah,
about?
sorry, I didn't realize it was already 11:02.
It's all good.
So I will forward the dates and times to the rest of the team so y'all know, and we can check in. If you have any questions, you can let me know in the meantime, but I will be sharing out the information from the previous sessions.
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. Thanks, Andre, for your time as
Thank
always.
you.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Bye.
You too.